Okay.
It was a great dry run.
Good to go.
We're live. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Randall Hunt. I'm really excited to be here. Last night we had James Hamilton's session, and then today we had the keynotes. And reInvent is underway. The expo hall is to our right. The registration desk is behind us, and we've got a nice DJ going. I'm here with Ian.
Hi.
And Julio. And we're going to cover today a bunch of stuff because there were a lot of announcements. Last night at James Hamilton's session, we covered the worldwide global infrastructure and networking infrastructure that makes up Amazon Web Services, along with our renewable energy commitments. And then in the keynote today, we went over Athena, querying S3 with a SQL-like interface, DeepSense, Poly, recognition, elastic GPUs, Postgres on Aurora, Lightsail, F1, I3 and R4 instance types, Greengrass, Snowball Edge, Snowball 2.0, Snowmobile. I mean, just the number of things is very difficult to keep up with, and that's a brief overview of what we released this morning. Go at it. Which one did you guys like?
Let's start by last night.
Last night?
What did you like about James Hamilton's?
I like the toast to the mainframe, the death to the mainframe. I think it's overdue. I really enjoyed the NASA post. I have my history in the space industry, and I'm pretty excited about helping out JPL and seeing the amazing stuff they get done. And then the global infrastructure, the building the Hawaii cable or the Waikiki cable.
Yeah, that was
cool.
my favorite.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
How we lay those cables and repair them and keep it.
And then the ASICs, Amazon is in the semiconductor business now. We have ASICs running on ARM machines
and all those details about our custom hardware and protocols and everything.
It was cool to see the lengths that teams will go to try and take cost out and make things as efficient as they can.
And the commitment to the 25 gigabit per second standard way back in the day, that's kind of an interesting choice. I didn't know about that before last night.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting keynote. It's always good to see James, and didn't disappoint last night, that's for sure.
And I enjoyed seeing the performer, Reggie Watts beforehand.
Oh, that was
really good.
Yeah, he was funny as well.
It was ridiculous.
So, what about today? Let's start by the new instance types.
I mean, it's up to you guys. There's a lot of stuff to cover. You take whatever you want. Ian, what are you most excited
So I
about?
thought the new instance types was a pretty interesting first announcement. You might have expected one or two new families, but essentially Andy announced the refresh of all of the families: the compute intensive, the memory intensive, the i3s to come next year, as well as a couple of brand new things with the F1 as well. So it's interesting when we come out with these new families, it's just automatically more efficient for customers, isn't it? I was looking at the pricing this morning, and if you were to stop your, if you were to replace your R3s with R4s right now, you take about 10% off your instance bill immediately just by stopping and modifying the instances and restarting them. They're roughly 10% cheaper for equivalent memory and performance.
Wow.
Yeah, for increased performance and equivalent memory, actually, because they've got better CPUs as well.
That kind of blows my mind because it's less cost for better performance.
Yeah.
It's kind of an incentive to move into newer
Of course it is, yeah, and you see big customers do that straight away, don't they? They realize that they can take some cost out of their bill by quickly taking advantage of these new features, and they move really fast. And I think all customers really should take a look at what they're using in the compute families and try to make sure that they've got the most cost-optimal instance types in use now, because simple way to save money, isn't it?
Yeah. And we released the C5 as well, right?
We pre-announced the C5 for release next year. That's got those Skylake Intel CPUs in it, which are brand new. So.
And they have the AVX 512 instruction set, which I'm pretty excited
which again
about.
is more performance for less price again, right?
Yeah, and it's not only more of the same. We have pretty nice new capabilities on those instance types as well, such as elastic GPUs or pre-announced. That's going to be fantastic for lots of workloads, right?
I'm excited about the ability to attach those to a bunch of different instance types. I think maybe you don't need a GPU all the time, so maybe you don't need the big workhouse of the P2 instance or one of the G2 instances. So you can go in and add this elastic GPU or an in number of elastic GPUs for what you need, and then you do your workload and you're done.
And you can size the amount of capacity that you want as well, right? Adding as many GPU cycles as you want and then taking it away, right? It's pretty cool.
That's really, really cool.
In any kind of instance type that you would like, right? Whatever is appropriate, just add a GPU to that. But these are things that people are already used to and pretty much expected. What really got me excited was the new F1 instances with FPGA. and I don't think everybody got that.
You could see there was a portion of the crowd in the keynote audience that got it immediately, and my favorite, there was a person on the keynote who just shouted out, "Wow!" And I don't know who that was, I don't know if it was a guy or a girl, but whoever that was, thank you, because that's exactly how I felt. I was watching the live stream elsewhere, and when that got released, I just sort of did a little fist pump.
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of customers using those in engineering and simulations. Obviously, I'm from the UK, and we've got customers in the UK in those areas, in semiconductors, in industrial design, and product design, and some of them already use FPGAs for design layout and simulation, and they can take that into AWS now, those exact same workloads, and run them on the F1, so I think that'll be really interesting.
And they use those FPGAs to design?
To design products. Yeah,
other semiconductors?
Yeah, semiconductors and other products as well that have simulation components in them, yeah.
That's kind of meta.
Yeah, kind of meta.
So what else did we do? We have...
What about Lightsail? If we're going to talk about new instance types, we should probably talk about simplifying the experience for customers that are getting started with the cloud. So what do you think about that?
I think Lightsail's really cool. I originally thought that it was going to be for startups, but after kind of seeing it presented and seeing what it's there for, I think it's more really for side projects. And that's kind of what Andy Jassy was talking about in his keynote, as he was describing, like, if you want to get moving with AWS, but you don't want to have to deal with VPC and deal with bandwidth management and all these other things, go into Lightsail.
Yeah, it's super simple.
And the point that I find interesting is that, of course, there's a lot of people that love the diversity of services that we offer, but in the field, very constant feedback is how complex this got, and we are working on renovations on the console and new services such as Lightsail to make it easy for everybody to run their workloads on this too.
You do quite a bit of work in hackathons, right? So you think it'll find a lot of usage among students and other people that just want to build projects quickly?
I hope so. We have a program called AWS Educate that's part of the GitHub Student Education Pack. So I don't remember the URL for that. I think it's just education.github.com. And if you go there, you get a few $100s in AWS credit and some links to some training and a bunch of other really useful stuff. And that's organized by MLH. And I was sort of hoping there would be a cool tie-in from the education pack into Lightsail. So I think it's pretty useful for hackathons.
Yeah, and it's not only that it's simple, but it's also fixed priced, so you don't fear running over your bill or credit card and things like that.
Yeah. And let's see, there's also the release of Rekognition, and I am personally a huge fan of this one. What do you guys think?
I think the whole series of announcements on AI products is a really interesting area. I thought the demo that Matt Wood did with the voice application service as well with Lex was also amazing. It just seems so simple, right?
It is, and you know, I'm actually delivering a serverless chatbot session that doesn't use Lex. So now I want to rewrite all of it to use Lex. So at reInvent is the only time you'll be able to do it without using Lex, because as soon as I get home, I'm going to rewrite it, because Lex is just the way to go.
Yeah, if you didn't watch the keynote stream, I think the people watching this should check that out. There was a demo there that integrated Rekognition for picking features out of photos together with voice. So you could say, take me somewhere where, you know, it's woodland and there's a forest and a river, and you would get back a picture picked from a big image archive that had those characteristics in it. Well, integrating the two services. That was really interesting.
Yeah. And all sorts of things can be done with Rekognition. You can become a cloud ninja.
So I built this really stupid little demo that I strongly encourage everybody to check out. If you tweet at AWS Cloud Ninja with the phrase Cloud Ninja me and a selfie or, you know, a picture of a bunch of faces, it'll replace all those faces with the Cloud Ninja mask. It's absolutely ridiculous, but I did it all with Lambda functions, and it was completely trivial with Rekognition. I mean, I think the entire project is less than 40 lines of code, and I will post the code as soon as the Boto Core updates come out, and you guys are welcome to go and use it to do whatever you want, and I'll link to that here.
And also you can make entire libraries searchable by getting the results from Rekognition and inserting it into Redshift, or even Kinesis streams, and the integration opportunities are just mind-blowing.
And then the other thing that I did, we have another developer evangelist, Danilo, who was on the stream yesterday, and he took movie frames and he analyzed every single one of those frames and stored them in Redshift, and then was querying them and was able to get the results from all of those, and that was fascinating.
Like he can query in which time does a certain thing appear on the movie and things like that.
And it's like, what are the general emotions of the actors? Are they mostly happy? Are they
how
mostly
many sad people are in the movie and things like this?
So I have a collection of about 45,000 selfies because I'm a millennial and I enjoy taking pictures of myself. And what I did is I put all of those, I did a similar analysis to Danilo, and I analyzed them all.
What was your average sentiment? Did you check?
Yeah, so my average sentiment was confused, and my average age was 47, which is depressing. I guess I need to level up a little bit.
So this is the first AI service that we are announcing, and there's 2 more we should talk about, right?
There's Polly and Lex.
Yeah. So I find Polly very interesting, as I'm in the e-learning space that enables a lot of new features, especially for people that can't or won't read everything and would rather have it listened. So you can add listening to any application, right?
I mean, the advantage of Lex and Polly in conjunction with each other is that it allows you to build your own Alexa. It's a just-in-time Alexa app wherever you need it. And I think that's pretty powerful, because imagine you're a car manufacturer and you want to embed this functionality of navigation, of I mean the possibilities are myriad, and it's impossible for me to go over all of them now. But you can just imagine all of the different possible scenarios where these things become useful.
And it's all based on a lot of deep learning technology that we've been using internally for a long time, and it's very, very nice to be making it available to customers.
I'm excited.
Yeah. And so next up is Amazon Athena.
Yes.
So in which use cases does that make sense?
I think I'm contractually prohibited from commenting on this, considering all of the posts that I've made about this in the past. But I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I think that being able to query these things is a huge win for our customers. And I think the support for all the different data types is a huge win, and the different prefixing and all of that. I mean, it's a great thing. I'm not going to say anything else about it, though.
One of the use cases that's been kicked around for this is weblog analysis, right? So immediately taking large-scale web or CloudFront logs and then being able to query, visualize, and analyze those logs without having to run any clusters. That seems like an interesting use case.
Yeah. In the big data course that we have, it's one of the parts that students like the best is when we use EMR to query S3, but you have to go through Hive and things like that. So being able to now directly query S3 without having to loops and hoops is just amazing.
Yeah.
Do you guys think there's any kind of tie-in if you were to put so I know that Athena can't do the images yet, but if you were to put images and metadata in an S3 bucket, would Athena be able to do some of the same queries that we were doing with Redshift? And do we know how well that would perform? I think the pricing is like...
Where's my truck? Where's my truck?
Oh, hey, everybody.
Truck back.
This is Werner Vogels.
Hi guys.
That's our boss. If you want a microphone, if you want to say a few things, we're just going over the announcements.
Talk to customers.
Okay. Well, you're live on Twitch.
Hello. Hi, I'm live on Twitch. Come watch my keynote tomorrow. The URL is
live.awsevents.com.
Okay, good. Watch me tomorrow morning. Lots of more announcements. Thank you.
See you, Werner.
Yeah, one of my favorite.
That was not scripted, by the way, just in case you were wondering. Definitely not scripted.
It's really terrifying when your boss walks up behind you and is like, "What are you doing?"
Well, at least there's everything here safe for work.
So, one of my favorite things about working at Amazon is this idea that it's always day one. So today was day one of the sessions for reInvent, and that was our first set of announcements. But tomorrow, I think you can expect just as much excitement and just as much stuff. And I really encourage you to watch the keynote tomorrow. The live stream will be in the Twitch URL. It's always day one, and if you think this is exciting, all the announcements, I can promise you there's a lot more.
We haven't even finished discussing what was announced this morning yet. You're already going on to tomorrow, so we should talk a little bit about Aurora for Postgres, and maybe some of the data transport services as well that we covered at the end of the keynote today.
I mean, the rate at which Aurora grows is just impressive, and having it available for Postgres.
It is the fastest growing service that AWS has ever launched, right?
Yeah.
and we're positioning it pretty aggressively, right?
Sorry, I'm still recovering from the Werner wandering into the live stream. I'm a big Postgres fan. I really enjoy the internals of Postgres, so I don't know if you guys have the opportunity to do this, but if you ever wanted to see a set of code that's really well organized and thoughtful and well commented and it illustrates the best of the open source community, I would check out the Postgres source code. And being able to take that and put it into Aurora where you can scale at a much faster rate and then not have to worry about provisioning your storage, you can grow seamlessly from 16 terabytes to 64 terabytes. That's a huge win, because previously with other versions of RDS or other offerings, you would have to do some sort of maintenance period. You would have to, replicate seamlessly to this new instance, and you would have to do the flip over to master, and it becomes complex. It's not a trivial task. I mean, the task is trivial to describe, but to actually do it in practice takes effort and expertise and experience.
Yeah, and for very high availability customers, this is pretty important, because we have now the MariaDB driver support for very fast failover. That's hard to get. You can get like sub-minute failover. That's something very hard to get with other drivers and those.
It's amazing.
And there's a lot of all the goodness from Postgres, such as geospatial searches and things like that.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the announcement, is that Aurora Postgres is going to support everything that RDS Postgres supports. So that means, full text search, JSON-B, JSON, GIN indexes, which is a full text search index. I mean, there's just myriad features from Postgres that you can now use in a much more scalable environment, and that it's really cool. I'm nerding out, I'm sorry. So we've talked about the F1 instances, the R4 instances, the I3 instances. What about the T2 expansion? That's one of the instant types that we didn't already cover.
Yeah, so this was increasing the upper limit on the T2s to add 2 larger instance sizes to the T2 family, still with the same burst characteristics, but just more memory and more CPU performance. That's probably something that I'll use myself, because I run Unreal Engine game servers on R3s right now.
Oh, do you?
But I can run those on T2 2XLs now, because there's enough capacity there for me, so I'll cut my own bill a little bit as well.
That'll be good. And then the next thing that I'm really excited about, so we've covered the elastic GPUs, we've covered recognition, we've covered light sail, the instance types. Let's talk about
it's probably the time to take a break and see if anyone have any questions on Twitch. Please, guys, if you have anything up, just ask us and join us, and we really want to know what you guys think.
There's one question, which is, can they get a cool jacket like that? You look fly.
Yeah, that's special. That's special.
So you can't see the Amazon Web Services black on black logos that are on the arms here? Cool.
I bet these will be useful during the party later. So let's talk about the Snowball updates, because there are portions of this that if you kind of extract out the trend of what is happening with Snowball, and you take it to like the logical but absurd conclusion, the world is a very different place. And what do you guys think about it?
Well, there were 2 different announcements there. We uprevved or released a new revision on the Snowball device, so the luggable. It was a 40 terabyte, then it was a 60 terabyte, now it's a 100 terabyte luggable storage unit that you can carry data around in.
And it's clusterable.
Yeah, so and we added S3 endpoint support, and we added the ability to run Lambda functions directly on the device as well.
And now, it's my understanding that the onboard compute capacity is the equivalent of an M4 16x large.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
M4, yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, so that's a server along with how many terabytes?
100 terabytes.
100 terabytes that you can run Lambda on.
Anything.
Yeah.
So, and then you just buy those and you plug them in.
Yeah. Stage your Lambda functions in the AWS console and then specify which devices you want those functions deployed to, and it will push them down to the Snowball Edge devices, and you'll have Lambda running on the device. That's right.
Okay. It's a lot to take in.
Well, where could that be useful? I can think of the storage gateway scenario, of course, there's a lot of functionality.
You talked about metadata extract from images, so if you're putting images into the snowball, you could extract metadata from the images with a Lambda function as soon as you put them onto the snowball with the S3 interface.
I mean, you can almost think of it as like a just-in-time Lambda availability zone, right? Yeah. You can ship these things out and plug them in, and you suddenly have this additional compute capacity and this additional storage capacity, and then you can exfiltrate that data, but exfiltrate's not the right word, but you can take that data back out and get it back into your traditional data center.
Yeah, I really liked Andy's example of using it on far IoT fields, such as remote farms and places where you don't
maybe oil and gas or resource extraction, where you've got
just collecting
data collection that you want to do in the field,
Yeah, high-scale data collection is something hard to do, and this will make it very much easier.
And then, I mean, along the IoT side, there's also the Greengrass release. But before we talk about that, there was one other update, which I just have almost no comments on, the Snowmobile. So the Snowmobile is an 18-wheeler that is essentially a data center on wheels.
Yeah,
I mean,
on stage.
100 petabyte transportable storage container, but not a storage container of that type, one that's got disks in it or media of some type in it. Yeah, that was pretty impressive. If you didn't see the live stream, what you need to know is they drove this into the keynote hall in the middle of Andy Jassy's presentation, and the audience just went completely crazy. I was in the keynote doing some social media coverage, and when the truck came in, there was a crowd of people just ran past me with cameras to photograph and video this thing that was just driving into that massive hall. It was amazing.
Yeah, and something I never have done that math before, but Andy is explaining how long it would take. It would take like 26 years to get that amount of data transferred, even if 10 gigabyte speed.
Yeah, and you know, the real power there is, again, I think it's this idea of a just-in-time availability of storage and potentially, you know, mild compute resources as well. And think about, you know, events like the Olympics. You know, they collect all of this data, and they don't want to have to stream all of that from the location where they're recording the Olympics into some cloud for analysis and viewing later. I mean, they probably want to do that, but in lower resolutions. But if they want the real, like, high-quality 4K video with all of the different feeds, like 120 cameras, that can all go into one of these containers, and they can ship that back into AWS. And that, to me, is kind of an exciting shift in the way we deal with high amounts of data. And the whole, there was a famous quote, and I can't remember who originally said it, but it was like, never underestimate the bandwidth of a Volkswagen full of hard drives.
Tenenbaum.
That was
I guess
Tenenbaum.
that.
Okay.
It's high latency, but high bandwidth.
Yes.
So we have a question from Captain Ryan. As a user unfamiliar with databases, what is Aurora and what's the difference between Aurora and a regular database?
So Aurora is RDS. RDS and Aurora are the same, but RDS allows you to run multiple engines. So you can run Oracle, you can run MariaDB, you can run Postgres, you can run MySQL, you can run a bunch of different engine types, a bunch of different versions, and RDS by default has a bunch of different availability options for you. So you can enable multi-AZ, which will keep nodes in different availability zones so that you can survive geographic or single zone failures. The advantage of Aurora is that it's an engine that's customized to run on AWS and to run in the cloud. It's kind of a cloud-first thought process around these engines.
Yeah, like engines like MySQL, Postgres are designed to run anywhere from your developer laptop to your data center or on the cloud. And Aurora is built from the ground up to be using the best of our network infrastructure, availability zones, services, and
still a drop-in replacement for those other engines, though. So if you've got MySQL applications, you can just run them directly on Aurora without making any changes. One of the advantages of Aurora is durability. So rather than having the master-slave model that you would have with these other database engines, with Aurora, every time you make a write into the database, we store that 6 copies in 3 different availability zones in one region. So it's very, very durable, very tolerant against failures, and also because the storage infrastructure is decoupled from the access layer, you get very, very good failover time. So if you do have a like a data access node failure at the front end of your database, you'll find that your recovery time is much quicker than with a traditional master-slave architecture, right?
It also grows automatically, so you don't risk being waking up in the middle of the night because you ran out of database space.
And I think the storage limits are drastically increased over what you can do with traditional RDS, right? Because traditional RDS is limited to about 16 terabytes.
Depending on the engine.
Depending on the engine. Whereas this goes to 64 easily.
And if you make the math on the costs, you see that if the Aurora's pricing is just amazing, because it's almost what you would pay for Modi AZ anyway. So
you get those other benefits as well. That's right.
So we got Snowmobile, we got the Snowball Edge. Let's talk about Greengrass, which is the new IoT framework that we launched today. And I'm not an IoT expert, so I'm going to let you guys.
We're going to have a guest, I think, joining us in a few minutes to
Really?
talk a little bit more about that. Is that right? Yeah. So we're going to have a guest coming on to talk a bit about Greengrass. But this is intended to simplify the process for building IoT applications that may not be permanently connected to the AWS cloud. So with our IoT service, your devices need to communicate with our gateway and the rest of our platform so that your application logic can be executed. With Greengrass, you can push some of that functionality closer to the edge and have the devices operate autonomously or semi-autonomously without necessarily needing a connection back to AWS's endpoints, our central endpoints.
So what I'm seeing overall with all of these announcements around Snowmobile and IoT and Greengrass, there's a change that's kind of happening in the paradigm that we use in execution on a daily basis, and that is we're becoming more comfortable with this eventual consistency model of, things happen out in the field, and the current latency doesn't allow for us to get, and bandwidth don't allow for us to get those things from the field to the cloud immediately. But the data is still useful in aggregate, but you may want to make an action on that data at the field and then aggregate it later. And I think that paradigm, I don't know if there's a name for it, but I think I'm seeing that more and more prevalent throughout all of this industry.
It really changes what can be done with IoT. Right?
So, do we have anybody coming to talk about the F1 instances?
Well, I don't know.
Because, no? Okay. I think the F1 instances, if you read Jeff Barr's blog post, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff happening there. So you can write VHDL, which is, in my opinion, not easy, or Verilog, which is, in my opinion, easy, especially if you come from a traditional programming background.
Let's just take a step back and explain what FPGA is, what programmable hardware.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So FPGA is programmable hardware. You can actually change the way the circuits are built, are intertwined. So you have hardware acceleration for your specific app. So you don't depend on your graphic capabilities or other kinds of acceleration. You can have hardware acceleration for algorithmic trading, for example, or video compression, or any kind of application.
So one of the things, like digital currencies, for instance, can take a lot of advantage of FPGAs. So one of the things that James Hamilton highlighted last night was the difference between software and hardware, because hardware engineers deal with nanoseconds and microseconds, whereas software engineers deal almost entirely in the microsecond to millisecond range. And you've probably all seen that set of numbers before, where it's a branch misprediction is in seconds, or in microseconds, and then
a cache,
an L3.
level 1 cache hit, and then your primary external storage is like 5 years in comparison.
Exactly, and it's an order of magnitude difference. But in hardware, the software that you write, if you write a while loop in Python, that's getting interpreted, it's getting executed by the underlying library, and it's going through numerous levels of execution before it actually reaches the hardware. If you define the steps that you want to happen in the FPGA, you're having microsecond latency on something that would take seconds or milliseconds in traditional software. So that's the real advantage. And the idea that you can take Verilog and build a circuit of your own choice and then upload that
move your performance critical algorithms down into the programmable silicon.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's not something new in the industry. FPGAs have been around for a while, but it's so nice to see it in virtual services
making
and
it more
directly
accessible, right?
to everyone,
more accessible.
right? I never could get my hands on one before.
So
Okay, it looks like our guest's here. Do you want to come in, Mark? Okay, so I'll introduce. This is Mark Ralph. Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do at AWS?
Sure. So I head up business development for mobile, for IoT, and for Lambda and API Gateway.
Cool, and we hope that you'll be able to tell the audience a little bit more about Greengrass, about what we announced today and why it's significant.
So we've been working with customers for a really, really long time on IoT solutions of all different types, big industrial stuff, consumer applications. And this time last year, we released the IoT, AWS IoT service. And a year's gone by, we've learned a lot from customers, gotten a lot of feedback, and a lot of customers talk to us about the need to be able to deal with different environments, different circumstances in IoT. So if you think about, we like to describe it in sort of three laws that often come up, and it's the law of physics. So sometimes you're doing things in IoT and other applications that it's just maybe impossible to talk to the cloud. We get, we had a mining customer as an example. They say to me, I go into a meeting and they say, our automated vehicles are going to be 2 kilometers underground. How do you work in that kind of case? Okay, that's a good one.
You're not using a cellular network, that's for sure.
No, but the law of physics also might be latency. I heard you talking about latency a second ago as well. So it might be something like a safety system in a vehicle, right? Any kind of delay in that circumstance isn't going to be good enough. So you want to have as low latency as possible. Then there's a law of economics, we heard. A lot of data can get generated by these connected devices. I was working with a city. They were doing wind calculations. And it was for a safety application, right? If the wind got too high, all these alarms would go off. You don't actually need that data except in the moment. So if you're sampling at like 1 millisecond intervals, if you want to do an analytics on that later, you might only need 100 milliseconds of data. So what do you do in the meantime? And so you want to be able to do some filtering because it's expensive to send that data. And then there's the law of the land. The law of the land is sometimes you're just not allowed to send data from a device to the cloud or out of a geography. It might be a national law, it might be a healthcare kind of application. And so we took all that feedback and we sort of coalesced around these 3 laws, and that's where the idea for Greengrass came from.
What is Greengrass?
So Greengrass is essentially a way for you on a device to use the same models of building applications and connecting to devices that you would directly from the cloud, but on a device itself. So Greengrass is software that runs on very low power hardware that brings essentially the best of Lambda and our IoT service to a device.
So you're pushing the Shadow and the rules engine down into the device?
You get rules in the form of Lambda functions. You get the Shadow, you get the registry, and you get the pub-sub communications.
So there's an MQTT relay in there?
There's an MQTT relay.
Okay, understand.
And basically, the model is that there's something called Greengrass Core, which is all of those components. And then there are Greengrass devices that through our SDK can communicate with that core device in essentially the same mode that today a device communicates with AWS IoT and with Lambda on AWS broadly.
Would you have some examples or a notion of what exactly are those devices? The minimal requirements, what people should expect to see running Greengrass?
I mean, today Greengrass runs on devices as low power as a Raspberry Pi or less. So these are very, very low power devices. In fact, that's to run Greengrass Core. Devices participating in a Greengrass group can be even lower power
microcontrollers,
than that, microcontrollers. And so the requirements are very, very, very minimum. In fact, over here in the exhibit hall, we have a Greengrass demo running.
I heard this involves beer, is that true?
I wish it did.
Okay.
This one's actually a little bit more, well, maybe not more practical. It's definitely not as fun. We have sensors mounted on a bunch of the pillars here in the exhibit hall, and what it's doing is tracking motion and heat and humidity and sound. And those devices, instead of communicating all the way back to the cloud for all of that data, are actually communicating with each other in a Greengrass group to a core device. So that's an example of an incredibly low power one.
That's cool.
Another example, though, I mean, it could be anything. It could be a medical device where you want data to stay inside a hospital, as an example, which is often the case, or a piece of heavy machinery as well.
Is this communication between the core and the SDK encrypted, or is
between the core and the SDK, yes, it is. Within the Greengrass group.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because I was thinking that this may be a limitation on how small can a device be for running Greengrass.
Yeah, because you'd have to have the base
At
capabilities.
least the basic encryption capabilities. Makes sense.
Okay, good stuff. Let's ask you a question about reInvent more generally. What's your favorite part of the show? You've been here quite a few times, right? I saw you here last year, so.
Yeah, this is my second reInvent, 2 in a row launching a service. I mean, my favorite part, I think, are the moments before Andy talks about the thing that we've all been working on for a year. We were all upstairs. We actually have this demo room upstairs where we're showing off a bunch of IoT solutions from our partners. And we were streaming the keynote, waiting for Greengrass to get talked about.
Great stuff.
And then the follow-up, because now we have a pretty big lineup of developers and customers wondering what they're going to be able to.
What it means for them, how they can use it, what kind of products they could build. That's great.
And one interesting thing, and I think it's important to clarify on Greengrass, is we're working with hardware partners, to your point about sort of the capabilities to have sort of Greengrass ready devices. It's important to know Greengrass is software. So when we're talking about these devices, it's our partners like Qualcomm and others are going to be building the devices that are capable. Greengrass is software sometimes.
So there'll be IoT gateways which have Greengrass built into them. Yeah, okay,
exactly.
Understand.
Exactly.
That's great.
Perfect.
Mark?
So I know in the Dev Lounge there's one project that is using Greengrass, and they communicate over this core infrastructure where there's a block on one side, and then there's a robotic arm, a 3D printed robotic arm.
Maybe we should explain. So it's like a mini assembly line. It's to simulate a shipping facility or fulfillment facility. So the blocks move down as if they were packages, and there's robotic arms built. So and we were hiding the fact it was Greengrass
until today.
Last night and this morning. We said, actually, this is how it's working.
So one thing I'm curious about are the applications to a field that's typically pretty far removed from cloud computing, agriculture. Because I see, the ability for these tractors and these other IoT devices to go out and perform automated actions, which would allow you to treat each individual plant. And I'm from North Carolina, from a farming community, and I'm seeing the ability to analyze and treat each individual plant or set of plants as you could. With some sort of intelligence based on a Lambda function running, or do you see any applications like that?
Yeah, no. Today, the way that gets achieved are there's data processing units on these pieces of equipment. So when you think about precision agriculture, and I've done a ton of work with a lot of the major companies myself, they have these very sophisticated systems. They can plant a seed at a certain depth, at a certain interval, in certain patterns. And they do that by having these onboard systems. The thing that would be attractive to them with Greengrass is when you may come up with a better model of, you do some data science, you realize there was a better way to do this planting or maybe just raw experience, and you want to update those systems with that new pattern. The great thing is now you're building those Lambda functions both either fully connected in Lambda as it is today, or functions that run in Greengrass, and pushing that down to the device. And so you're getting that logic incredibly close to the device with incredibly low latency, which you need in that sort of near real-time kind of environment.
What's the experience like for a developer that wants to push an update then? Do they do that through the console?
They do that through the console, and that's sort of the beauty of, if you've written any kind of Lambda function, you're halfway to knowing how Greengrass works anyways. You're going to build those functions, those are going to roll down to the device, and it's an incredibly familiar kind of environment. And a lot of customers find that really, really compelling and useful. We're working with a lot of these heavy equipment manufacturers. We're helping with their data communications from the device to the cloud, their back-end systems for machine learning and those sorts of things. But then they say, hey, let's take all that experience we've built up in Lambda and have that roll in exactly the same pattern down to the device itself. That's a superpower, as Andy would have said this morning.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is just pure speculation, but I don't know anything about anything coming, so I'm just I'm excited by this, and I think there's an opportunity. They're partners in their companies like farmlogs.com that measure all of this stuff, and they don't make hardware, but what they could make are the analysis components, and they could let other people execute those Lambda functions at Greengrass, or maybe some way of vending those out. And I see that as a huge opportunity for skilled software engineers to have impact where traditionally they weren't able to have a great impact.
And that's absolutely true. And when you think of all these kinds of scenarios where people are moving to sort of more subscription and service-based kind of models, or perhaps leaving the core development of the hardware to those who have that as an absolute core competency, focusing on software instead. Well, now, we're already having this experience with Lambda today, where they say, hey, this is an incredibly easy way to innovate at an atomic level. Now we're doing that at the device, sort of at the device level as well. You'd see applications we've never been able to do before as well that sort of come into play. I would talk to customers, they'd say, hey, like a railway company, they had sensors in the station to stop runaway trains, right? It would trigger a set of actions that would slow a train. And you say, look, that absolutely has to work. Yep. We've gotten used to this way of building applications. We want that to naturally flow to this infrastructure that we have in place. And Greengrass is the way that they're going to do that going forward. That thing's going to run no matter what, under any circumstance, and have that logic with incredibly low latency and a model that they really understand.
So we have
it is incredibly hard to make reliable IoT, right? You have to think about security, durability, availability, and all of this stuff. And I'm sure you guys are doing a great job at that.
Yeah, we're spending a lot of the show talking to a lot of customers about exactly those things.
So we have two questions that I think are relevant for you, and if you don't know the answer, I think it's also in Jeff Barr's blog post, because I don't know the answer. But RNZ Twitch is asking what languages are supported in Lambda at Greengrass. And then the next question is, what are the minimum power requirements, also from the same person?
So it's going to start with Python, and we'll roll through the common Lambda functions. We're in limited preview now, and you'll see sort of the functionality increase quickly over time. The minimum power requirements, that will be in the Greengrass blog, so I don't want to say something that's incorrect off the top of my head, but it's in the blog post for the minimum power requirements. Here's another interesting thing, is how we're going to price Greengrass that people might...
I'd be curious to know about that.
So we're basing the use of Greengrass around the number of devices that communicate back to the cloud in a month. So a device that wakes up over the course of a month, that's something that you pay for in that communication of the cloud. But here's the great thing is, we kind of don't think that you should have to pay to use Greengrass and execute Lambda functions on your own device when it's not talking to the cloud at all. So that isn't something that we're billing for. So that device that's offline when it's doing its own thing.
If you're autonomous, you don't get a charge essentially.
That's great. And so we've had a lot of really positive feedback about that as well.
Interesting.
Great.
That's great.
I can see some people using just for the on-premises Lambda thing.
I mean, you can get that now with Snowball 2, right?
Yeah.
I keep calling it Snowball 2. I'm not supposed to do that. It's
Snowball Edge. Snowball Edge.
Yeah. Well, I think that's everything on Greengrass. We've only got a couple minutes left on the stream, so we're going to open it up for questions on the Twitch channel and maybe share some final thoughts and close out.
Yeah, that's great.
Good?
Sounds great.
Thanks,
hey guys,
thanks for joining us. Appreciate
you
it.
wrap it up. Thanks for
really
having
fantastic.
me on. All right.
See you around the show.
I'm super stoked about Greengrass, and I'm super stoked about all of the stuff that this enables.
I love IoT development. I think it's a great area. So much, so accessible for developers that want to build things, prototype, maybe rediscover skills that they might have lost. I think it's a really interesting area. You see the community doing some good stuff there.
And it's always fun to see hardware. You know, there's a component of software engineering where we're removed from the hardware. We never see the arm move. We never see the thing happen. And being able to do that is always just really, really exciting.
What I found most exciting about today is to see how things are converging in all fields. Now you can just plug your IoT and go, and data goes to S3, and you can query it, you can run machine learning on it, you can interpret the pictures, you can interpret voice, you can just build whatever you like.
We've got one question on the stream there. I don't know if you've seen that, Randall.
So Techno45 asks, what can you do with AWS to help track the compute time needed per user as you increase data collected in, say, a personal assistant app? So I've actually thought about this, believe it or not, which is, was this question planted? No? Okay. Is this a real person that asked this? Okay, yeah. Hi, Techno45. I have actually thought about this, and I'm building something for this. So one of the things that AWS has is Cognito. And the real power of Cognito, in my opinion, is not the fact that it manages identity and registration and all of these other things, and the user pools and all this other stuff. The real power is what Cognito enables when it's combined with IAM. So let's say you have data in DynamoDB, and that's your personal assistant data. And you say that's partitioned by user, or it's partitioned by some index. What you can do when you have a user coming in through Cognito is you can say, given an IAM policy, I only want them to have access to these rows within DynamoDB. And rows is the wrong word because it's a non-relational database. Documents. Yeah. Forgive my my traditional legacy SQL background. You can define exactly what resources those users have access to, and you can create policies where they're not able to execute anything else or do anything else, which means you can put those credentials on the phone itself or on the device itself and enable it to speak directly to DynamoDB. And that is super, super powerful because that's kind of game-changing in terms of identity federation into your database directly. I mean, one thing that I've always wanted is that a similar feature for RDS. And I've been playing around with stored procedures in some way to implement that, and I've just completely failed.
That would be cool.
I'm sure it's possible.
Also, one thing I was thinking is using CloudWatch, because CloudWatch has support for a lot of features around tracking, and you can add your own custom metrics and add dimensions. So if in your custom metric you add a dimension saying which user was that, you can easily measure and track how they're behaving and how much they are using, and then you can have a fairly good idea of how much compute power you would need and predict what's going on.
We did just launch the new CloudWatch dashboards widgets, right? So now you have the ability to go in and put in your own little widgets up there, so if you needed to track a specific thing within CloudWatch, you could do that. And then the other, I'm super big on serverless, and I know it's me being nerdy, but I find the power of executing Lambda functions, of going into Dynamo via Cognito and IAM to be a total game changer in terms of app development, in terms of just about everything.
Yeah, that's like the bigger picture for serverless. People hear serverless and they think Lambda or AWS Lambda, but actually it's Dynamo and it's Cognito and it's building complete applications without having to run any infrastructure, and therefore having no floor price for your app. So if you have no usage, you have no cost, right?
Right.
And as your usage scales up, your costs will scale up gracefully. And I think there's some things that this questioner could probably do with metadata storage. So for example, keeping track of how much consumption of DynamoDB capacity is being driven by individual users in the app. Maybe putting that in a separate table, and then using that to report back within their application on what their spend levels are for different customers that they might have.
And then the other advantage of Dynamo is that you can scale up. And I think you are limited to 5 scale down events per day or something like that.
I think it's 6.
6? Yeah. Okay. So I've done that when I've been playing with recognition and analyzing my selfies, is I threw all the data into Dynamo first.
All 45,000 selfies.
All 45,000 selfies, and let me tell you, that's a terrible thing. You don't want to look at that. I scaled it up to 100 write requests per second, or whatever it is, and then write capacity units, and then I scaled it back down to 2 because I didn't need it after that.
And it's important to say that Lambda and serverless is not just for request-based operations. It's an event-driven engine tied to all 2 platforms. So if you need to tie it on S3 or DynamoDB, this is pretty much.
And I'm curious about this because I haven't played with it yet. But the ability to tie in recognition, Lex, Poly, Lambda, and API Gateway basically allows you to recreate. I mean, you could build Jarvis if you wanted to from Iron Man.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll come back next year and demo that.
Yeah, I'll get to work right now. I hear Mark Zuckerberg.
We have a very great new resource for learning Lambda and serverless. We have a new book out from our mate.
Yeah, we do. So one of the colleagues on our team wrote literally the book on Lambda.
Yeah.
And there's a promotion right now from those guys. If you can get a discount from those books using the CTW Reinvent code. I hope you can get and find him here, get your copy signed. That's a great resource.
Yeah, hunt down Danilo P on Twitter and he'll do that for you, I'm sure.
I hear he's signing them. So we're going to close out here in just a little bit, but before we do, I wanted to ask you guys, without giving anything away, what are you most excited about for tomorrow?
Oh, well, tomorrow night is the party.
Yes.
Well,
so I'm most excited for the party.
There's a pub crawl today.
Yeah, but I'm most excited for the party because you said tomorrow, right?
Yes.
So definitely the party.
Yeah.
It's an easy question to answer.
I'm also very excited for the party. Have you guys been to the park yet?
Yeah. I went over there last night over the bridge. There's a bridge out the back of the expo, and then you go down this ramp, and there's two huge hangars that are like the biggest tents that I've ever seen in my life. Out there with food and bars and things in them, it looks great. Yeah.
I played Hangry Humans, which is Hungry Hippos. You wear an elastic belt and you run out and you jump and you grab these plastic dodgeball kind of things and you throw them into this bucket.
And then you get whipped back by the elastic.
Exactly. And I played that for a little bit. It was fun. And then there's the batting cage, and the batting cage is really cool because it uses the exact same software that MLB uses in real life.
StatCast, yeah.
Really?
MLB StatCast, yeah.
Wow,
So
that's
you can
cool.
go to the batting cage and you can, prove how weak you are.
That's so cool. And
for
the
me.
vintage electronics mini golf.
Oh yeah, the vintage electronics mini golf was fun too. You and I went around there last night and just sort of checked it all out. I'm excited to go back there today. What about in the expo hall? Any booths you guys are excited about?
Well, I really like the developer-oriented booths such as GitHub, Redis, and geekier stuff. And
There's a snowmobile trailer in the expo hall now, like a fully featured one that's opened up. You can look inside it. You can see the cooling, the power, how the thing is engineered and fits together. It's pretty cool.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's there. So if you're here, go and check that out for sure. It looks amazing.
One customer was telling me that last year he left the expo hall with 99 t-shirts.
Oh my. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good swag in there. We also have the developer lounge, which we are required to talk about because one, it's amazing, and two, a bunch of our team members worked on it, and we're really proud of what they've built. So the developer lounge, they're going to have a bunch of kind of informal sessions.
It's got a huge foosball table. It's like 20 feet long where you can play foosball. Robots. There's a motorcycle on there. Open source motorcycle. There's all sorts of stuff there.
So check out the dev lounge, and then I'm sure you guys will see a Cloud Ninja wandering around. And then, what about sessions? Is there any session today or tomorrow that you guys really want to see?
There's the serverless miniconf tomorrow.
You and I will both be there.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to go to that. Danilo's, who wrote the Lambda book, has worked on the agenda for that, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah,
Great.
and it's important to mention that it's not only the breakout sessions, we have sessions at the expo hall and the dev lounge, and those are very good opportunities to get and talk directly to who's building all these platforms.
If you're here, it's a good idea to check the agenda app as well, because obviously with the launch announcements, we do update the agenda after we've made the announcement, so there'll be deep dives on some of the new services from today, and who knows, maybe there'll be some more new stuff in tomorrow's keynote as well, and some more new sessions added.
So one of the sessions that I'm very excited about, we have the same session every year, but it's always better. So I do everything in the terminal. I stream to Twitch from the terminal. I listen to my music in the terminal. I do Facebook chat in the terminal. I edit code in the terminal. Vim, not Emacs, I'm sorry. And one of the really cool things that we have at AWS is the AWS CLI. So you have AWS S3, and every other service is enabled through that CLI. And you can make a call out to just about every service. And a bunch of the new services that we announced will be coming.
They'll be added real soon, yeah. Yep.
And we always have a session at reInvent, which is advanced CLI tips and tricks.
That's cool.
And when we say advanced, just go watch last year's in 2014 to get an idea of how advanced it is. I mean, you will be using SED.
I've learned stuff beyond the AWS CLI by watching that session on YouTube, because they had JQ, the Java JSON parser that they
Right.
introduced that I'd never seen before. And that was amazing when they
and
introduced that. I thought it was brilliant.
You can filter, aggregate, you can do all
Yeah,
sorts of
it helped me get other stuff done well away from AWS and other things that I was working on when I saw it. It was brilliant.
And I love that session. I always learn a lot.
Yeah.
And then, so I think we're just about ready to close out here. So I'll say a few other things that I'd encourage both attendees and those of you who aren't attending reInvent to check out. The first is to watch the live stream keynote tomorrow. The link to that will be posted in just a second. It may have already been posted. Werner is going to potentially be more developer focused. I don't actually know.
That's the normal pattern, but we'll see.
These guys have all the details. So there'll be a lot of other really cool stuff tomorrow to see, and then there'll be a ton of expo stuff happening tomorrow, a ton of great sessions. The sessions, the majority of them will be posted on our YouTube channel at the end of reInvent. It may take a few days as everybody kind of relaxes and de-stresses, but even if you're not here, you should be able to see all those sessions. And then the other thing is, if you're tweeting about reInvent, I encourage you to use the hashtag reInvent. I've seen a bunch of different hashtags floating around, and reInvent is the one where you're going to get the most notice, and it's where everything's being tracked. So use that hashtag, and come to my session.
Come to my session.
Yeah.
I already had my session, so you missed it.
Well, I'd say, please tell us what you thought about this Twitch, or what you would like to see us discussing here. All sorts of feedback will be really taken into account, and we would love to bring that to you tomorrow.
And I broadcast on Twitch on most Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I do live coding on AWS. So we built the daysuntilreinvent.com web app previously, leading up to reInvent. And I'm going to try and continue to do that, and I'll showing you how to build the Cloud Ninja selfie app. I'll show you how to build the a couple other things that I can't talk about. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I have a bunch of different apps, and I'm sure everybody else will be broadcasting as well. And what we're really hoping is that we can get some AWS engineers and people who work on these services onto the live stream to tell you guys about it, because I think there's a tremendous opportunity through this channel to reach out to people who are developing every day. So that's it. Do you guys have any closing words?
No, thanks for inviting me on your channel.
Thanks.
Very nice to be here. I hope hearing a lot more from you guys.
See you guys.
Bye,
Thanks for
everybody.
watching.
Thanks a lot.